Hey everybody, welcome to the Starting a Counseling Practice podcast again. We are so excited to be sharing the wonderful, lovely journey of Shay Dubois, and they're starting a private practice and what life is like in 2025 as a therapist in private practice. It just happens that Shay's someone that I've gotten to like hug in real life and hang out with in real life. And so it is both a delight that we get to hang out more and a little bit of a sadness that we're not hanging out in person to have a hug. Thanks again for being here, Shay. Do you want to share with people your website address, where you're located, and a little brief of your specialties to orient us?
Yeah. Thank you, Miranda. It's so great to be here with you. So my website is overcomeanxietytrauma.com. And I'm an anxiety and trauma therapist, but I really specialize in doing somatic work with people who have anxiety and trauma. And I'm in San Diego, California.
Perfect.
Hmm.
And that piece, right? That like I think it's an unfortunate, just a quick aside and like soapbox for me here. The amount of therapists, really well-meaning therapists that try to talk people out of such a body and brain-based somatic experience.
Yes.
I think it's a sign that number one, we didn't teach people about trauma for decades as part of graduate school. Um,
Mhm.
and two, it's just such a disservice to our clients. So I just want to first say, yay, I'm so glad you're doing that deep work to really impact people. So
Mhm.
let's start here. Minute or less, why did you decide to become a therapist?
Oh man. Probably because of my own childhood, unbeknownst to me. But I just remember being in high school in my first psychology class and thinking, this is so fascinating. And so I was a neuroscience nerd right from there. I knew that's what I wanted to do.
It's fantastic. Did you
Mm.
have like peer counseling at your school?
Not so much, but whenever I went on to college, I had some really good peer counselors, or not peer counseling, but I had a really good advisor.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
And then did you go straight through, even though you kind of knew in high school, this is the thing that I want to do? No, not a straight path.
Oh, no.
Your winding path to getting licensed. How
Mhm.
long did it take? How many little croppings were there?
Yeah, so I actually had to pay for all of my school myself. And I got scholarships and work study. And I was able to do a couple of years at the beginning. And then I had to take off time and I went and I was a nanny in New York for like really wealthy people for a few years. And then I came back and I did another year of school. And then I had to take off time and work. So I worked in the airline industry as a customer service supervisor, which, if you want to talk about training to deal with people with trauma, right there, we got it.
Not just people with trauma, triggered people with trauma.
Oh, yes, very much so. Yeah. So you learn how to regulate your nervous system real fast and how to help other people regulate.
Mm,
And then I moved to Europe and I worked in Europe for a while as I was taking one class at a time, just like trying to pay for school. And I didn't finish school till I was in my 40s, but I knew the whole time that that's what I wanted to do. And I got licensed right after I had turned 50. So I really had hoped to do it before my 50th birthday, but it was during COVID and the way that the testing was going. So I didn't get licensed till I was 50, but I knew this is what I wanted to be doing all my life.
and that
Hmm.
perseverance, and also a little bit of that maybe even a little bit, right? Of that trauma piece of like, I gotta pay for it myself. I can't take it out any debt to like do this process, right?
Mhm. Oh, I had some school loans, but I was able to get them paid off. So I think I only graduated with like $10,000 of debt. So after my master's.
Much about how much I graduated with too, with a master's. And I went to state schools and I had a little bit of help from one of my mother's husbands would
Nice.
pay for those things. Uh,
Hmm.
as a fun fact, because my mother refused to fill out any FAFSA forms. So
Mm,
even though I would have qualified for state assistance, I couldn't actually access anything because at that time, if your parent wouldn't fill out the FAFSA, you
hmm.
not get support.
Yeah.
Now there's some options. Maybe even then there was some kind of a way to navigate it, but I
Hmm.
didn't have the resource. But I had this person who was like,
Yeah.
I will pay the $300 in tuition for this semester, and that made all the difference.
Yes, it does. Sometimes it really, really does.
Yeah, it does.
Mhm. Hmm.
So, did you always know private practice was the path, right? You're getting licensed at 50. You're in that thing where you're like, yes, private practice, or you're like, I don't care. I just want to be doing the work.
No, I actually started out at a nonprofit and I loved it. It is a place that I have a lot of respect for in the San Diego community. They are so involved in so many ways that people don't know. And so I started out at a, a homeless shelter for teens and did a lot of stuff there. Then I worked at a program that was for relative caregivers. So, like aunties, grandparents who were taking care of young ones from their family. And then I did mental health in a high school and elementary and middle school. And I was there for like 7 years. And I actually was asked to open a trauma clinic at that nonprofit. And I was told I could do neurofeedback and somatic therapy there. And I had the skills to do it. And then they changed their mind. And I didn't want to be doing talk therapy for trauma. And so I quit and went into private practice.
I am so in love with this story, Shay. I don't recall this part or this piece,
Hmm.
but I absolutely love that piece, right? And I think this is sometimes when we take a more meandering route or when people have had multiple like different careers before they get there.
Hmm.
Sometimes that can lead to us feeling a little more stuck, but then sometimes it leads to that like knowing and that
Hmm.
confidence to say,
Yeah.
I only have so much time to do this work. Like, no,
Mhm.
I worked so hard to get here. I know it works. This is the piece. I'm not doing this. This is absolutely ridiculous. So that is
Mhm.
so beautiful. So tell me about, so what year was it when you were like, okay, I'm gonna start the private practice?
Oh goodness. I think it was 2018, maybe. I think it was 2018. And I remember seeing your business school for therapist. I'm on vacation. I'm on the balcony looking out at the ocean. I'm hearing these birds. I'm seeing these trees. And I'm like, I want to be able to feel like this more often. And I went to my partner and I said, I'm doing it. I'm joining this business school and I am going to open my own private practice. And I'm like, within the next 6 months, I'm doing it. And so I signed up on vacation while he was still asleep. I started looking through the first module right then and there. I'm having my coffee and I'm like, we're doing this. And I will tell you, one of the best things that I got out of business school was my accountability buddy. Gina is my accountability buddy. we have been together for over 3 years. I went to her wedding in Vegas last year. I was the first person, oh, I was the first person who knew that she was having a baby and the sex of the baby, like besides her partner. And I mean, I just love this woman. I love this woman to death. And we still meet every single week for over 3 years. We've been meeting and helping each other through our business.
That's so awesome. And is she in San Diego too? Or
She is in LA.
she's in?
So we went up, and like had dinner and a movie together not too long ago. And I think next weekend we're actually getting together uh, at a beach little pierside place. And we're giving her her baby shower gift. So yeah, I mean, she's just like one of the best pieces. And there have been so many great therapists that I've been able to network with through the Zenime community for sure.
I think this is I was at a meditation event, like not a therapist event to be
Hmm.
clear. But it just happens, of course, I run into like other therapists there.
Hmm.
And so I was talking with this therapist, and he was saying that he just decided to close his practice and go work for someplace else because he feels so isolated.
Hmm.
And I went, oh, okay, that makes okay. And then he followed up with, but I'm still working remote. And I went, wait, are you really going to be less isolated? So there's this funny piece, right? Of a we associate private practice with isolation,
Hmm.
and we associate sometimes this idea that we need to be involved with a group or that somebody else can create community for us.
Hmm.
This is a great example of, regardless of whether you had joined business school or not, you were someone who really leaned into
Hmm.
creating and nurturing community and
Hmm.
building connections with people and making sure that you were not creating isolation for yourself.
I am less alone now than I was when I worked at the nonprofit, to be really, really honest.
Yeah, I think so many of us, I definitely felt like that. As much as there was like lovely people in the
Hmm.
nonprofit, like people that I still like really like love who they are as humans, I think there was a part of me where people saw me as the therapist. And
Hmm.
sometimes like they would come to me if they needed support, or maybe they would avoid me if they needed support, like whatever that needed.
Hmm.
There was sort of this weird thing that other people would do. Friends too. I remember a friend saying like, yeah, I really pulled away from you after you became a therapist because I was afraid that I wouldn't know how to navigate that line. And I was
Hmm.
kind of heartbroken, like, but I know how to navigate it. Like, please don't
Yeah.
pull away from me. I don't like that, what those pieces are. But
Hmm.
you you can see that like shift and change. And so that choice that we have to
Hmm.
create something that's really sustainable for us,
Yeah.
as we create a business. And if we're not creating, and just as a side note for anyone listening, like I use the term business and private practice interchangeably because they are interchangeable. A private practice is a business. You are a business owner. If it doesn't matter how small it is or how big it is, if you are being paid, if someone's handing you a check to give them therapy, you become a business owner in that moment. You become a sole proprietor, whether you've filled out any paperwork or filed anything with the government or even done something with the city. You became a business owner. And at certain points, maybe the amount of money might create some dynamics where, oh, now the city says, well, now legally you have to file a
Hmm.
business license. But again, it doesn't mean you weren't a business before. It just means this is a tripwire that says we got to fill out some paperwork now, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So you did it. I mean, people do it lots of different ways, but you were like, I'm going to do this process. I need some support. So you got some support from right from the beginning.
Hmm.
Tell me about what was that process, even with support. What was that process like? What were you most surprised about the actual like setting up and launching of your private practice from scratch as a 50-something-year-old woman?
Yeah. So I think. whenever I first did it, I, s- I still hadn't done all of my trauma work for me. And so, you know, I went to one of these brokers who are like, oh, we'll handle the insurance for you, right? Because I was like, okay, I can get guaranteed clients. And I had a couple like community referrals, but I didn't really know that many people from the strata of clients that I would need because I'd been in the nonprofit world for so long, right?
Uh, yeah.
So, I also worked, a, I had worked a little bit for a group private practice. And so some of the clients came over with me, and the group owner was beautiful and said, don't worry about it. We understand you've done a lot of great work for us. And so she was fine allowing those clients to come over. And so, I was scared about putting myself out there, marketing, and all of that at first, right? And I think the really big thing was as I did my own trauma work, how I changed as a business owner and how much my healed nervous system made a difference as far as the things that I was willing to do. So, one of my first YouTube videos was me just talking about how hard it is to be seen, how hard it is for me to put myself out there and step into my knowledge and own what I know and like in my nervous system feel my solidness. And I'm such a different person now today than I was a few years ago. And I did Gabor Mate's compassionate inquiry, and that was intense.
Yeah.
And I came out the other side such a different person and just so much more gracious with myself, um, a lot more healed, a lot more confident in myself. Still
Yeah.
a work in progress with that, but like I'm okay with that. And I learned how to love myself, and that made such a difference in what I'm doing. And
So much to unpack there. I love it. So first you talked about or you referenced, I forgot the language that you use, but you said a broker, like kind of like a broker, this idea.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
when we're talking about that, like we often refer to those as like online tech companies. So I've been like putting together a list of some of these different online tech companies. Some of them you outsource directly. They just do they quote unquote just do the insurance billing for
mhm,
you.
mhm,
Some of them do the insurance billing and then also provide you referrals. Some of them kind of
mhm.
take more of
Yeah,
that
it was.
over and specifically market for you. So I'm going to say some names, none of them but for other people listening, so that
Mhm,
they kind of understand all the different pieces of what that looks like. So we've got like an Alma, we've got a Headway, we've got a Spring Health, we've got a Grow, a Sondermind, a BetterHelp, a Rula, a Teva Health, a Talkspace, a You Will, a Telemind, a Modern Health. We also have Gotham and Guideline Healthcare and some LGBTQ directory listings,
mhm,
different ways that, and some of those are all actually BetterHelp under different names recruiting
mhm,
people. So
mhm,
it's a very different for people who are starting private practice right now.
mhm,
There's a lot more there's a lot more things. I always say there's actually the best way to say it. I was like, is there a nicer way to say this? There's a lot more noise.
mhm,
A lot more noise. There's a lot more noise and things to consider. It
mhm,
used to be that you just said, okay, do do I want to work for a nonprofit? Does that work for me financially?
mhm,
No? Okay. So now my options are group practice owner
mhm,
or go work for another group practice
mhm,
or go and start my own solo practice, right?
mhm,
These are the options. And now with all of these online tech companies, I'm getting them in my texting me regularly and on LinkedIn daily. I'm getting an
mhm.
invitation. They're getting into my email. I'm like, how are you getting my stuff everywhere? Um,
Yeah, I think if you've been licensed, they can look it up, right?
Well, and even my license shows it's inactive.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
haven't seen clients. So I'm like, there, but they found my phone number. That wasn't
Mhm.
my phone number when I was licensed because I changed it when I sold my practice. So it's
Oh my goodness. And
pretty,
did I tell you what they did to me? So I had opted out of Medicare, and they had been sending these messages that you don't have to accept Medicare. You can choose yes or no if you want to work with Medicare clients. And so like it was November or December, I opted out of Medicare. I think it was March that I get a message saying, as of today, you're no longer employed with us. You have a week to notify all your clients that, you're not going to be with us anymore. And I work with people with complex PTSD. One of my clients had been in the hospital for suicidal ideation 2 weeks before that. And I'm supposed to tell all of these people that their therapist is gone, which everyone has attachment trauma. And
yeah.
so I was like, what do I do? And so I tried to fight it. I was like, so at the end, I sent them a message saying, I know you looked at me as a piece of machinery, and I went into this agreement knowing that that's how I was going to be considered. But the way that you're treating your clients, our clients, is unacceptable and it's shameful. And I ended it, shame on you,
Yeah.
shame on you.
Yeah.
I just was like, that's it. I was so angry. And so what I did is I did free sessions while people tried to find new therapists through the portal if they couldn't afford to do anything different. And anyone that wanted to stay with me, I gave them 50% off of my regular rate so that they could stay with me because it wasn't their fault.
Mhm.
And then I helped clients work on getting single case agreements. And so we were able to get single case agreements with their insurance company so
Mhm.
that they could continue seeing me. And
Mhm.
that was only like 4 or 5 clients. So the rest of my clients are actually at my full fee. And, I think word of mouth about the way that I do therapy and the things that I'm able to do, and, somatic therapy really works. So yeah, you know, it was a scary time. But, it really brought me to the place that I wanted to be, not working 100 hours, you know, having the clients that really want this kind of therapy.
It can be such an interesting space where we can be in this yes and place, like, oh, this was absolutely terrible and like not okay. And like, oh, this was the best thing for me. Like, I'm so glad that it happened, right? And again, this sticky place too. And I think this is an interesting piece in terms of how Medicare works. And a lot of people don't understand. We have a blog on our website that goes through this in more detail. But Medicare is a really interesting space because you can't just get credentialed for Medicare based on where you're at, right?
Hmm.
Like, okay, I'm going to get credentialed to take United Healthcare
Hmm.
at this group practice or through Alma or whatever the
Hmm.
dynamic is, and like they'll reimburse me. Medicare is really interesting because they don't automatically opt everybody in, but they also don't automatically opt everybody out. And
Hmm.
if you're not opted out, you cannot take someone's money who has Medicare.
Hmm.
Meaning that if somebody gives you money for a session, they say, hey, here's the piece. You go, oh, do you have insurance? They go, oh, yeah, but it doesn't cover anything. I can't find a therapist. I just want to work with you, do private pay. You go, okay, no problem. And you see that person. If any of that gets reported and that person has Medicare, maybe they're not even 65. Maybe they have some
Hmm.
kind of other diagnosis or some other kind
Hmm.
of social security that puts them in that. Maybe they had a parent that died. I don't,
Yeah.
so many different dynamics that could be in play. You would have to actually give all of that money back, right? Because you can't bill their insurance because you're not on Medicare, because you didn't credential with Medicare.
Mhm.
And you can't take their money because you didn't opt out. And
Mm.
then the piece de resistance of this is that you have to be opted out. When you opt out, it's for every place that you could work,
Hmm.
where that is. So it's a very,
For 2 years.
yeah, for two
So
years,
it's
you
for
can't
two
undo it.
years. Yeah, you can't undo it. So I mean, like, I even the place that I'm doing the single case agreements with, I was like, hey, can we do something different? And they were just like, nope, we can't. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm trying to advocate for these clients and I can't. So
It's
yeah.
a really interesting system that we have ourselves in. There's actually, this is like a probably distraction, but it was really lovely. I was watching just a comedian, and she was saying she was talking with her friends in Canada, and they were like, "Is the healthcare system like really as bad as they make it out to be?" And she was like, "No." And then she just starts explaining how like premiums and co-insurances and deductibles and plans and in-network and out-of-network and out-of-pocket maximums for the individuals versus the families and like all these things. And I just imagine myself hearing it like for the first time. Something about the way she described it. I was like hearing it for the first time from someone who was just in these other spaces going like, whoa, this is really broken. This
Yes.
system is really wild that we are a part of. And here we are, often as therapists, and I know I give the statistics a lot, but I think people
Mhm.
need to keep hearing it. The top five health insurance companies in 2022 and 2023 made over $40 billion of profit. Now, in
Mhm.
2024, that went down, but that's only because UHC had to pay out a ransom to
Mhm.
hackers. That's the only reason. If you actually look at the profitability without the payment to hackers, they were fine. They were still on track for that for over $40 billion. It's just is wild, the system.
And I know we're almost out of time, but that takes me to something that I'm really passionate about, and it is the people who profit are the insurance companies. And yet the expectation is for therapists to take that blow. And after all of the time and money, last year I probably spent 20,000 on education,
Mhm.
and not that I'm not grateful because I got some amazing education, but I just don't think that people understand what we put into it, the amount of time, the licensing, the internships that we have to do, all of that, right?
It's
And then it really does feel like you're judged if you're trying to make a living wage and if you don't take insurance. There are some judgments about that, but I don't want to be complicit in my own exploitation, not anymore. I just don't want to do that.
Can you just say that again, Shay? Like for the therapist
Yeah.
in the back.
Yeah, I just do not want to be complicit in my own exploitation. I just, I love myself too much to do that anymore.
Oh, I do know we're running over a little bit. Do you have time to stay or do you have a client
Yeah,
right
I have some time.
now? Okay, perfect. Yeah, I don't know why they scheduled this so short, so I've got time if you don't mind going over.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was whew, that I just want to sit with that again, like how that feels in the body of being in that space. One of the things that you also mentioned earlier was this place of as my own healing has progressed, I
Mhm.
have noticed that it has a direct connection into like what's happening in my business.
Yes.
And we talk a lot about this idea that starting a business is one of like the biggest self-development courses that you could take.
Yeah.
As it's this, I know it's a little bit trite, but like what you do in one thing is what you do in everything. If you've
Hmm.
been struggling in your life in general to set boundaries, to value yourself, to see yourself well, to, um, to slow down, to honor your body's needs, to be
Hmm.
present, to be grounded in your body, um, you're going to notice that same things cropping up and showing up in like really impactful ways in your business. And now
Hmm.
there's no like, in theory, there's no secondary person like, oh, my boss,
Hmm.
oh, the this, oh, the that. No, I'm deciding
Hmm.
in this space. Like I'm creating this. I'm deciding which contracts to say yes and which contracts to say no to.
Yeah.
Okay? And I think it's really beautiful and brave. Not every therapist has a privilege to say no to insurance, but
Yeah.
every therapist that does have that privilege actually increases the bargaining power for the
Hmm.
therapists that feel or that for whatever reason they cannot leave.
Hmm.
That bargaining power goes up the more of us that say no, right?
Yes.
If we want this thing to change, there's actually more need for mental
Hmm.
health care than we have therapists to provide it.
Hmm.
Yet somehow we're being underpaid and exploited
Hmm.
by not just insurance companies, but by the online tech companies who are going to come into the middle as an intercessory and take a percentage and a cut. And
Or,
again, on the surface, this kind of makes sense, right? You're like,
hmm.
oh, they're going to help, we're going to navigate it. But billions of dollars have been paid to these other companies, no, to fix the insurance problem. But the insurance companies are still the one taking all the profits home. These
When,
places still are not actually profitable and they're not
mhm.
making any money. The therapists still aren't making money. The problem is not fixed.
No, and when I found out how much the company that I was working for made compared to what I made, it was unbelievable. And then I'm seeing like Chat CBT coming in, and people are saying that, I mean, I've seen screenshots of the chat claiming to have a doctorate, to having 20 plus years of experience, of being licensed. And people are thinking they're talking to real people. They're, I mean, like, and this scares me also, right? And how these things are coming in and making these claims, and especially with fragile, vulnerable, triggered, not regulated people desperately looking for help, right? And so I think really for us as therapists, looking at these things, having a voice, taking a stand, advocating, I think all of those things are so important. And do not be fooled. People are not helping you start your private practice. They are making bank off of your education, your work, your stress, your skill. They are.
It would be nothing without you. Like you
Absolutely.
are the product. You are the valuable place. And I've heard so many people say, oh, well, people are using Chat GPT as a therapist. Here are these things. Like people aren't looking for therapy. But actually, when I look at the data,
Hmm.
more therapy than ever before.
Hmm.
And if what you're doing in the office could be done by ChatGPT, then with all the love and respect in the world, then you're not doing it right.
Hmm. Hmm.
If
Yes.
what you're doing could be done with ChatGPT, it is time to expand your toolbox.
Yes,
It is time
absolutely.
to like really sit down, learn some somatic based skills,
Hmm.
be in presence with people, like
Hmm.
really be in like deep connection. And instead of like fighting against the AI, see the AI as like, hey, that could be a wonderful resource for someone in between sessions. That's great.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like ultimately, what do most people need? It's not that they need to like be able to learn how to interact with AI better. It's that they need to learn how to do human experience, how to be
Mhm.
in presence with people, how to put their damn phone down, how to
Yeah.
be nature, how to like really feel the uncomfortable feelings that they don't know how to be with. And
Yeah.
sometimes like doing that with a computer just isn't, it's not the vibe, yo. Like,
No, and I think about we need a regulated nervous system to help us regulate sometimes. And I also think about how Gabor talks about trauma happens in relationship because we did not have someone there when we were in a state of overwhelm to help us navigate. And so healing happens in relationship as well. And so for me, you know, that is such an important part of it. And someone who's had attachment trauma, never being seen, never being heard, you're not getting that experience from AI. You're just not.
well, and here's the other piece. I'm gonna again, I'm just gonna say this from the as crazy as it sounds. If you feel more heard by AI
Mhm.
than you felt from your therapist, again, therapist, you're overworked. You're overdoing it. Something's not happening. Are you okay? Are you
Yeah.
feeling really grounded? Do you know how to like open up your heart and like
Mhm.
really be present with people? And I'm saying that as a person who didn't know what I didn't know. Like I was a trauma therapist that didn't always know, or that like went into more somatic or brain body based material, but could only take my clients so far because I had only gone so far in my own healing. And
Mhm.
so that space of like really learning how to open up and for people to be able to feel like, oh, I can just sit with you in silence without you saying anything. And I can just feel you from across the room. I can feel you in my heart.
Yes.
Ooh, that is what is going to transform our world. It is
Yeah.
not chat GPT. What do I do about
Mhm.
anxiety? That's
And today I had two sessions like that, two sessions where people were just like the aha, and one I was doing some brain spotting and they were just like, oh my gosh. And they're like, and I said, I knew that was what was it was gonna be, but I had to let your brain and body get there. And it's just so amazing. So I always tell people I have the best job in the world. And I love working with therapists as clients because I know how much better we can get whenever we do our own work. But yeah, just I don't know. I never want to do therapy in a different way. And that's why I left the nonprofit. I looked at my soul and I was like, no, ma'am, I can't do it. No matter how much we want to have a free trauma clinic, this is not the free trauma clinic that you dreamed of.
so impressed and so excited for you. And oh my gosh. All right. So before we wrap
Mhm.
up today, if you could give one advice to anyone who's listened to us rattle on all this time, if you give one advice to someone who was where you were,
Mhm.
uh, what would that be?
Find your therapist who can help you overcome those things that are keeping you from living the life you want to live. I had to work on my fear of being seen, and I had to work on my feeling of not being enough.
Yeah.
And when I was able to really go in and do a lot of this deep healing, that changed everything. I remember the first time I said my rate is 262, it felt like it was so stuck in my throat. And now I'm like, yeah, I know I'm more expensive than other people, but I am so worth it. And you are not going to be in therapy forever. You're going to be in therapy for months instead of years. Absolutely, I know this. And so, yeah, the way that I feel about myself and my work is so different. So do that for yourself.
I can feel it like in my belly when you say it, like the truth of it like radiates. And it's one of the pieces, right? Like
Mhm.
we got to hang out at a brain spotting training. Like it's a wild thing that we as like a business school, we trained all of our business coaches in brain spotting because we realized there was so much that was in the way of that work. And so integrating that in because what we like it impacts whether you work at it from the business perspective or you go straight from the personal, it all ties over.
It sure does.
So also like be thoughtful when you're talking with your CPAs at tax time about how you're navigating this work and which direction you go so that you can write this stuff off on your taxes, y'all. Because I think it really does impact your finances. And I think many people can show that if you're getting good trauma work that has that
Mhm.
focus, like you're going to see a difference in your bottom line in a beautiful way. So
And I'm actually pivoting and making an online class for people who are people pleasers and how it impacts business, personal relationships, and living an authentic life. And so, yeah, that's another thing that I'm starting to do now. So, yeah, and business women who are people pleasers, that's really who I'm looking to work with now. So, so
oh,
excited about this.
we'll have to have a whole nother conversation and bring you back on to talk about that. I'm so excited, Shay.
Well, thank you, Miranda. And I'm going to be seeing my last client in a few minutes, but oh my goodness, getting to see you at that brain spotting training was such a thrilling like time for me and just to get to know who you are like as a person and truly like who you are here in the Zenimi space is who you really truly are. And I love that about you, and your work, your and Kelly's work changed my life and where I am living so much closer to the dream than I thought was possible because of the tools that you provided. So I'm just saying with all sincerity, thank you. Thank you for doing this for us because we need that vision. We need to know it's possible so that we're not exploited because we are seen as just a part of a machine by most people, but our work is so important.
Magic. And at the end of the day, like the part that I get the most excited about is that all of this is just supporting you in doing the magic and helping so many clients.
Mm.
Because that version of you versus the version that feels stuck in doing talk therapy or the version that's seeing 30 or 40 or 50 clients a week, and falling asleep or can't remember your clients, that you're not in your in your truth, in your heart, in your body, like that's just a version that doesn't help people. So,
Yeah, you're not in your flow, and I just want to live in that place, right? And
yeah,
I hope all of you guys get to live in that place too.
me too.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Until next time, we got free resources for you. And of course, the business school, you can find it all at zenime.com. Come join us and join Shay. We have a quarterly sprint coming up soon, and we'd love to see you there.
Oh, thank you. Bye, everyone.